Welcome back to David Ornstein's not seen his family in weeks. Chelsea are signing 10 new wingers, and Arsenal fans are already panicking. It could only be the transfer. The best part about football finally reopened on the 1st of June. It closes again on the 10th of June for 6 days due to the Club World Cup, because of course it does. Then opens again on the 16th of June before closing on September the 1st, and destiny awaits for Arsenal. With no international tournaments, I would love this window to run a bit quicker than the last one. Calafiori took until late July to be confirmed, Marino was late August, and Sterling was 1 a.m. on deadline day. But you know what club we support. Do they ever do what we want? To be fair, despite me getting tetchy watching how advanced City, Liverpool and even Man Divided are with their business so far, Arsenal do seem to be trying to keep up. Gabriel's contract is close, we know we're looking for second goalkeepers and a young centre-back, there's sales on the horizon, and we have a here we go for Zubimendi. According to James McNicholas in The Athletic, the deal will be confirmed in July due to some accounting preferences on Sociedad's side, but it seems to be wrapped up. And we appear to be in for another. News broke last Thursday from some guy called Fabrizio Romano that Arsenal have started concrete talks for RB Leipzig's Slovenian striker Benjamin Šeško, having had attempts pushed back in May 2024 and January 2025. Since then, various reports have emerged saying Arsenal are pushing ahead and looking at structures of payment, the release clause, and other boring bits that have to happen for the fun bit to happen. A price hasn't been confirmed at time of recording, but I want to knock something on the head. Mike McGrath in The Telegraph appears to be the source of the £92.5 million price tag I've seen floated, but personally, I find that number very, very hard to believe. There was a gentleman's agreement last summer that Sheshko could go in this summer, according to Fabrizio. There's talk of a release clause, according to Florian Plettenberg of Sky Germany, at around €80 million, so about £68 million. And this season, Leipzig finished outside of the European places for the first time since they got into the Bundesliga in 2016. Leipzig have very little bargaining power, and Sheshko wants to move. So any price nearing £100 million feels to me a little bit like posturing from the club or the agent. As of recording, we haven't heard yet from the Oracle, interestingly, but David's spoken many times in the past of Arsenal's interest in Sheshko, just without saying yet that he's definitely the pick. It's far from done, but with concrete links and many outlets saying it's happening, it feels like it's heading one way. I said in my last video that Sheshko is on my priority list. So to be honest, when the news broke, I was really pleased for my ego because I was right, for the team and the club. And before we discuss anything else, it is really exciting that Arsenal are potentially signing what I see as one of the great upcoming striking talents. Let's be clear, Sheshko has flaws, but he could, in my view, grow into a truly world-class centre-forward who has everything. And that part, having everything, is very, very, very rare, by the way. For example, I think Erling Haaland is a fantastic goal scorer and striker, but he doesn't have everything you could want from a centre-forward. I think Sheshko could. He's a physical freak in the best sense. He's 6'5", he can run you, he can jump higher than you, and he's better technically than a lot of other top number 9s. He can use both feet, his first touch is immaculate, nearly always setting himself up well for that next action. He can rocket them in, he can poach with timed runs, he can run channels, he can pass, he runs out of possession. I know some are concerned about him from a data perspective, which I hear, but I think the numbers will scale, which we'll come to later. In my opinion, when he puts everything together, I think he'll be the best number 9 in the world at some point. His issues, as I see them, are when he's forced wide. I think you can shrink his game and his options a bit too much right now. And I think his decision-making is a little bit immature. When you watch compilations of his shots, he can make the wrong call when a runner is on. But the big issue is him under contact, especially when pressured from behind. That is a concern. We did a scouted episode on him on the Canon podcast, and George, my co-host and UEFA licensed coach, brilliantly and simply breaks it down. So if you want to see that, go check it out, because it's a very clear, coachable solution. Maybe his running gait is a little bit unconventional too, but I'm nitpicking. His idol is Ibrahimovic. Says it all. If this deal becomes more advanced, we'll talk more about how he fits in. But for now, I want to talk about something else. There hasn't been universal acceptance of this deal, despite his obvious talent. I will always put social media tax on this, but you don't have to look far, certainly online, to see people who find this deal hard to stomach. There will be some of you in the comments who don't like this, and fair enough. I don't want to overplay this. The vast majority of people are happy, but hundreds of people voted no on a poll I gave you guys asking if you were happy with Sheshko on YouTube. Perhaps they'd have put it depends if that was an option, but picking camps, there are people with big concerns. And perhaps this mirrors your experience too. It's not just online. People I speak to in real life, I know, real life, people whose opinions I love and respect, when I bring up Sheshko, they go, yeah, okay. And I don't think people can't see the talent or the player. I think it's something else. Because I get it. No matter how you try and rationalize it, no matter who we pair him with or how exciting he could be, Sheshko scored 13 goals in the Bundesliga this season, isn't a finished product, has flaws in his game, is going to cost a lot of money, might not hit the ground running or even work at all anytime soon. If you'd stopped me after the PSG second leg, removed the name and said our solution this summer is a 22-year-old who scored 13 league goals, yeah, I'd have been concerned, of course. He may work out. But do we have that time? So I'm not here to try and convince you if you don't like it or rationalize it into actually being a brilliant idea, actually. Well done, Mikhail. I'm here to explore what I think is the club's thought process in getting to this point, with Benjamin Šeško, seemingly, as the chosen one. First and foremost, trophy anxiety. There's a whole video in this, but in essence, it's hard to hold that Arsenal will exist beyond next season and beyond Mikel Arteta. I know many of you, myself included, think this project needs to work now. We have to win now, and we do. But there are those within the club whose job it is to ensure the long-term security and prosperity of Arsenal. The club has to consider the long-term health of its squad this summer too. And although that has to be balanced, for example, with Zubimendi, I think we're signing a peak player. I do find it relatively easy to understand why the club want to buy basically the best prospect in their position, in my opinion, on the market, even if I have short-term concerns, especially at what I think it will cost, probably around £60 million. Otherwise, we just pay the release clause, hopefully on favourable payment terms and not crazy wages. Long term, I think this will age well. We may not be concerned by the long term, but some people are, and long term, I think this will age well. Secondly, I think a lot of people want Arsenal, beyond just signing good players, to make a statement with our forward signings this summer. For many fans, understandably, it goes beyond the dull technical requirements of, he sets up his next action well with his first touch, or whatever it is. We want the name to come with an association, because it kind of signals an intent from the club we love. We want the name to say, hey, we're here to win today. And maybe some feel that with Sheshko, but many won't, no matter how much I rate the talent. But, and again, forget what I think or you think, how much does that really matter, genuine question, to the club themselves? We think it matters, that message. And I think it does to a degree. But I always wonder if Tim Lewis, Richard Garlick, so on, really consider what the transfer means all that much. Also, we're asking something from the hierarchy, and maybe fair enough, but we have to consider what is doable. We want a world-class message of a centre-forward. Okay. Who? I'm not playing who's out there because there's many players, but the number 9 market is complicated, and it's their job to weigh up all the options and make the right decision. In an ideal world, I think most people would agree we are after a centre-forward who is, number 1, ready now, proven to be world-class. Number 2, a feasible option, deal and money-wise, so the wages make sense, the fee would make sense, etc. Number 3, available for purchase, i.e. the club we're buying from will actually sell and the player wants to come. And number 4, would send that message of intent and excite people, difficult as that is to define. Again, all for an ideal world. So let's look at the market. Let's look at the 6 main names linked to Arsenal. The first target, almost certainly by reports, would have been Alexander Isak. He is off the table. Newcastle in the Champions League makes it, hey, as far as we know, right? But just not doable. I think this is the perfect message signing. I think this is the best all-round centre-forward in the Premier League. He's better than Sheshko, no doubt. Tick, tick. But he's not available. And the wages and fee might have made it a non-starter even if he was. Also assuming he would have chosen us because he'd have had the pick of the clubs. Next, Victor Osimhen. I love the player, so I don't get it. But he just appears not to be of interest or doable for clubs in England. There's no links, there's no talks, nothing. Maybe it's wages, maybe there's something we don't know publicly. I think it would send a huge message, maybe some don't agree, but it seems off the table in at least 2 of these categories, although maybe slightly unclear. I know some would disagree on the proven talent part, but for me, he's right up there. Victor Gyökeres. I'm trying to put my subjective opinion on the player. So, no, actually, I can't. I'm sorry. I just don't see it to a Premier League and Champions League winning level. Good player. Please don't get me wrong. But the Portuguese league translation for their Golden Boot winners historically hasn't worked. A good way to half of his goals are penalties. And at 27, there's limitations technically and physically that aren't changing. I have not seen him head a football into a net. Maybe, and in my view, because of the overhype around him, it sends a message to some, not to me. But say you're a huge fan, he's your guy, you want Gyökeres. Okay, write your hate comments, fine. But please come back to me at the end of summer and see where he's ended up, especially when everyone in Europe knows he wants a move. That will tell you what the top clubs think of him. To be clear, if he ends up at Arsenal, I will support him. He's our player. But Gyökeres will frustrate. Šeško would frustrate, but Gyökeres would frustrate and not have much upside, in my view. Hugo Ekitike. Good player, more a facilitator Havertz type to me, but not proven world-class, and I don't think he'll get there just personally. It's not sending a message to anyone, much as we might like it. Is he going elsewhere? Have we done the work we need? Not sure. So maybe it's not doable either at this stage, considering the links to Liverpool and Chelsea, who I would actually argue miss this type of centre-forward, unlike us. Ollie Watkins. I think an 8 out of 10 in basically everything you want from a centre-forward. Hugely underrated. But I can't sit here, as much as I like the player, and say he's on the same level as Isak and Mbappe and Haaland. Or indeed that he's going to get there at nearly 30. Imagine. Over the hill. Washed. He's a lot closer than some people think to those guys, and he's probably feasible and probably doable with Villa's situation. I'd like him, but as a message, no. Although that is a shame, because I think we're too used to him. Just quickly, he might be the perfect third signing if we also sign a winger because of his versatility. And finally, let's put Sheshko on there. Is he world class? Not yet, but I firmly believe he will get there, unlike the others. It's feasible deal-wise, he's available, and the club will sell. In my view, it doesn't send that message, might to a few, but we're stretching, I think. Maybe you feel I've miscategorized someone. Fair enough, football is subjective. But just look at the market there. Add in maybe Retegui or Pedro or something. But you can't tell me we're sat here with 15 perfect players with 4 ticks who go on that chart who we're ignoring because of Sheshko. No one has more than 2 ticks. And crucially to me, Sheshko is the only player there of the 6 who can get to at least 3 ticks across the board and soon. And for me, if you had to pick the least important of the 4 categories, by absolute miles, it would be the message, the signal of intent. Long way of saying, looking at the market, I get Arsenal's thinking here. I know what we want, because I want it too. We want to be blown away by Arsenal's intent this summer. I think some of the, okay, to Sheshko, even from myself, is because we're kind of used to the name. It feels like the sort of sensible project option, and we don't want to be that club anymore, and I get it. But if it's not Sheshko, who? Guaranteed. Who? And do we need to be blown away? We want to be excited. We want the transfer endorphins. But if we're honest with ourselves, really, a lot of that's for us. It doesn't really affect what goes on the pitch. For me, doing nothing is the only major error Arsenal could make this summer. You could make arguments for others. Say it all falls over and we went for, I don't know, Ekitike in the end. Am I going to be frustrated Arsenal didn't sign the perfect player this summer? No. They've looked at the market and based on what we know so far, I think I understand their thinking. And then, if you do have imperfect options, if you can't get Isak, basically, it's about aligning the problems you have with a certain player that you've picked with your squad. And that's what I think the club have done with Sheshko. I hate this thing where fans are expected to, or worse, pretend to be experts on every single player. I have opinions on players. Feel free to disagree. It's just my opinion. I've watched a lot of Sheshko, but I'll level with you, maybe 8 hours of his game. I'm still learning the player. However, there is one thing I'm categorically sure of. Arsenal know their flaws, and they know that Sheshko specifically solves them. You've all heard me talk about the specific issues Arsenal have for a while now. Lack of pace, turning high turnovers into shots, blah, 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 blah. I won't bore you. Here's the list from the last video if you're interested. Those of you who follow me have heard it a billion times, and you've even heard me talk a little bit about Sheshko. But let's go into more detail here. Everyone bar 6, the 1v1 ability, although to be fair, he dribbles excellently, Sheshko has. Not saying others out there don't solve some of them. This isn't me hating on Gyökeres again. He has a lot of those things. But all of them, bar 1, with a big fat yes, No one else in the market other than the guys we can't get comes close for me. If we had different issues, let's say we couldn't get the ball in the box or we couldn't retain it in the final third or we took too many shots, yeah, Sheshko wouldn't suit that. But if my grandmother had wheels, even Sheshko's flaws, dealing with contact. Look at how Saka has developed in that regard. Look at Miles strong-arming his man, Declan, Saliba, Havertz even. Look at how Gabriel deals with centre-forwards and put him in training next to Sheshko every single day. I think with Mikel, we have an environment where his flaws can quite quickly turn around. People are probably going to take most issue with me saying he's an elite finisher, number 3, because of the output numbers. Okay, no problem. But ignore output for a second and just look at this. These are his running XG versus goal numbers over the course of the last 2 seasons. On the x-axis, shots. On the y, goals. As you can see, he consistently overperforms his XG and is getting better and better too. The sign of a proper finisher. Is it enough XG and enough goals? No. But this season, it was 8.4 non-penalty XG in the league and 11 non-penalty goals. 8.4 isn't enough. So some of that is him. But we can pump those numbers up and get better quality around him. In terms of finishing quality, for context, Mo Salah got 18.2 non-penalty XG in the league last year and scored 20 non-penalty goals in what most people would probably say is the most free-flowing attacking system in the league, with one of the best finishers in the world in one of his best seasons. In other words, Sheshko's overperforming his XG by about a third, and Salah is by about 10%. In regards to his finishing, there's also room for optimism when broken down even further into post-shot XG. If you're unfamiliar, this is how good the quality of the finish is once it's left his boot, according to the stats. He's running hot here over the XG consistently as well. What we need to do, in my opinion, is get Sheshko in consistent positions, give him the tools, more chances, and I really do think we watch him explode. Just watch him hit that ball against Werder Bremen and tell me who finishes like that other than the very, very best finishers around, probably Isak. I think the words proven and guaranteed are slightly overrated in football. Where's the proven goal scorer? Go and get the proven manager. He's won already. I get it, and I would like it if it was available. It's a tick. It's a pro. Please don't get me wrong. And proven managers and players who've won big things have come to the Premier League and then won here. It helps. But some of the greats of the Premier League, De Bruyne, Salah, Ronaldo, all arrived in England untested, unproved, and proved themselves here. Was Arsene Wenger, our greatest ever manager, proven when he came from Nagoya Grampus? Not Monaco. No, he was Arsene who? I'd prefer it, but I'm much more interested in the conditions. And if I were to predict someone coming in and working, Sheshko having physically everything we lack gives me the instinct that something might work from the off. He hasn't been injured since 21-22 either. Welcome to Arsenal, son. That'll change. I've come to an analogy with Sheshko that I like. The colour of the puzzle piece, the strength of the material of the puzzle piece, where the puzzle piece goes, yeah, those are all debatable. But the shape of the puzzle piece, almost perfect. And that's what I think Arsenal's thinking is. And another thing, we do already have strikers. I know we forget this because they're injured or they're not exactly perfect, so therefore they're washed and unusable. But for me, Sheshko makes a lot of sense in our group as well. And I suspect Arsenal think about that too. Watch an interview of him, he's humble, but he does have a confidence and a spark and a presence that I think we lack. We already have peak experienced centre-forwards in Jesus and Havertz, Champions League and Premier League winners. So we supplement that group with a younger, hungrier guy. Certainly short-term, we have facilitation and a space creator in Havertz. We sign a dominator of that space in Sheshko. I can see them playing together. I can see one changing the game after the other runs their socks off. I can see him working with Jesus. I mean, Nico Yova must be licking his lips. Set piece FC, here we go. I'm joking, but it's another factor. And where I really get excited about Sheshko is who he could be paired with. Because I feel this summer, the left wing market is much more interesting than the 9 market. I don't know why we're not looking at this. Semenyo, Lookman, Leao, Barcola, Sane, Gordon, Sancho even, Williams, Coman, Rodrigo, Gittins, Mitoma, Rashford, could even look at Eze, Xavi Simons as well. I'm not saying any of those are perfect, but there's so many names to look at. And when I look at the 9 market, I don't feel that. Pick your favourite, but there are certainly some, especially in our environment, win now players who solve our specific problems as well. players who can take on that pressure and give us that immediate lift that Sheshko doesn't need to necessarily take all on his own. He can take his time and develop a little bit, maybe dovetailing with the other options there. But to be honest, based on what we said, I don't think this adaptation period is going to be as long as people might think. Finally, a lot of this comes back to one thing. How far you personally think we are from major trophies. I think that basically decides how you feel about Sheshko. And the fact of the matter is, we were second or semi-finalists in 3 of the 4 competitions this year, with half a squad, no signings, and 10 men 6 times. We are close. If I said to you, okay, design me a football team who are probably as close as they could possibly get to winning major trophies without winning them, what would that look like? I think you'd say consistent challenges, consistent improvement. The year before they did it, they came second. They were in the finals of 3 major trophies, let's say, and they actually had their hand tied behind their back the whole time, and then they went and spent big in that summer. You'd probably say something like that, no? Sound familiar? I get it. Some people don't like the Sheshko move. They want other players. Okay, let's let the football do the talking. And I think the club's transfer record recently is pretty good. A lot of people will like this move as well. I don't want to let the loudest voices drown out what most people will see as a pretty good signing. It's not about letting up on what we need to do. I think we need more, and ideally more proven quality, despite my opinion on what that is. But it comes back to, do you fundamentally believe we are 3 or 4 £100 million talents away from winning the league and Champions League? I just don't. Again, not taking the pressure off this summer, but for me, it's about getting everyone we do have on the pitch, adding the right quality, and fixing our skills gap. That's as simple as I can put it. And while Sheshko isn't the icing on the cake today, given how close we are, I think he will be soon. I have some concerns. It's not the perfect transfer. I don't think that's available. But from the club's perspective, I get it. If you can allow yourself, because we've been hurt before, I think we should get excited about this. Because Benjamin Sheshko, whether that ends up being at Arsenal or not, is the chosen one. Thanks so much for watching. If you like The Different Knock, you can support us on Patreon and get ad-free early access to each video for just £3 a month. Or for one-time support, you can buy us a coffee. Links are in the description.